Hello, this is the 3 best agents to play to learn Valorant. This is mainly aimed at beginners, but it will help anyone below Immortal. First of all, we're going to go start with Jet. So we're going to go completely basic. So Jet has a smoke. He has an updraft, which is a big vertical jump. He has a dash, which is a big horizontal jump. And she had knives. And the knives, or Blade Storm, is a fully accurate gun, essentially, that refreshes on kill. It also has a right-click mode that is basically a shotgun that does not refresh on kill. Now that we've got Jet, we need to look at what abilities are going to help us to improve the most. So Dash is a very important ability to Jet, as this allows her to take off angles. And now we need to talk about off angles versus on angles. So this is an on angle. So what this means is that an on angle is something that the enemy team is most likely going to check when they enter that space. So this is a very, very popular on angle because this is one of the first fights that can be taken in a round. So everyone's going to be like fighting here, essentially. This is a very well-known on angle. And with the Sentai as well. A lot of oppers like to stand over here, which is usually an on angle. And oppers like to take on angles, and I'll get to that a bit later when we talk about operator. So as Jet, we actually have the luxury of taking off angles, which is something like this. The reason why this is an off angle is because if I'm clearing this, I'm going to check this angle, then I'm going to check this corner, then I'm going to check this corner. And some people, I mean, most of the time you won't get people that do stuff like this, which is like the safest way to check this, is the way to like kind of stop a Jet from doing what we're about to talk about. But a lot of people do not do this. Even at my elo, at like Immortal 2, Immortal 3, people do not do this. At Pro, it might happen, but you're not going to be anywhere near that yet if you're watching this video. So, yeah, so the people are going to be looking at this angle, then they're going to look at this angle, and then so on, right? They'll look at the corner, and then they'll keep looking, and then they'll probably look at that corner. So what we actually skipped to our angle. So we can see in any angle that got skipped in between here, right? So in this sort of area here, this is like the perfect place to stand because no one's going to be aiming there. Like no one's going to pre-aim this, right? So we can stand here with our dash prepped, and it's important because this allows Jet to be one of the stronger agents in the game because she can actually take up these off angles without getting traded. Any other agent cannot dash away, not like that. Any other agent can't dash away like this, right? Every other agent, but sorry, Jet can. Jet has this strength to her, right? And that's what we need to learn when we're playing Jet. We need to make sure we're learning that we can take off angles, and what off angles and on angles look like. And also, next thing we're gonna learn is about entering. Now we're going to talk about entering. It's a very big part of Jet, and a very big part of the game in general. So what entering is essentially the first person out into the site or into wherever you're going. And we're going to do that by demonstrating two examples of how to take B site. I'm going to do very, very bare bones first with just dash, and then I'll talk about how to combine abilities. We're also going to use this switch because it's a very big part of B main ascent, and that can allow you to think about some other parts of the map and also some other maps in general, right? How you can use the environment or the gimmick of the map to your advantage. So in this example, we're just going to do a jump dash to switch and close the door. So what has that done? We have dodged any fight we will take from lane. This is lane. Any fight we're going to take here, we would have dodged it, right? We also are now taking a fight here, and we've cut off a sight line here after some time because the door has to close. So now, because the door has to close, we couldn't have to buy ourselves some time, or we have to get someone else to buy some time. You can ask for smokes like this, that's completely fine. But we also have the option to smoke ourselves. So now we're going to smoke, and then we're going to dash. And then we can also re-smoke. And now, when the door's closed, we can actually fight anyone CT. We've isolated a potential fight. Because anyone that will try to flood into the site, so flooding is when the enemy, so when the attacking team is going into the site, the defending team is actually trying to get into the site at the same time, and they're just trying to take a lot of gunfights straight away, very fast. So we can actually like stop that from happening, or like contribute to anti-flooding by waiting for this door to close and holding CT, or peeking a weird angle out of our smoke, right? The smoke is very, very strong in the way that we can play out of any side of it. And because we're inside, right, we can play with this smoke. We can go out anywhere, and the enemy team don't know, right? Or the enemy person fighting us don't know. I also will quickly talk about the jump dash. So when I dash normally, right up against the wall, I'm only going to get 11 meters. If I decide to run and dash, due to my form momentum, I'm going to get 12 meters. If I do a jump dash, I'm going forward, I get 15. You actually get about 14, 15 meters. So it is better to jump and dash in most situations, as you are able to get more distance. So that's also not on top of that as well. We kind of have to jump for this boat, so it wasn't completely obvious that we have to that jumping is more distance. But generally, you want to be jumping even if there isn't a boat here, because it just gives you a bit more distance. There are some situations where you don't, but most of the time you are. We will also now talk about the next example, which is going to be combining updraft with dash. So with updraft, we can actually get into positions that not many other agents can. For instance, if I just want to quickly demonstrate, not many agents can get up here. There's like Omen and Raze and some other people that can get up here. But for the most part, we are in the minority that can get up there. So we can actually use this in a separate way, in a different way. We can use it to combine with our dash to get onto sites like this. So this is really, really strong, right? Because it allows us to dodge every fight at the start of B main and try and kill the anchor straight away. So this is quite strong. However, it is something that you probably need a teammate for, to like flash or to help you in some capacity. The reason being is because there's a lot of downtime where you can't shoot, right? We're in the air for a decent amount of time. We also, yeah, we're just in the air for a decent amount of time, right? So we can't really shoot when we're in the air. Not very much, but this, you might be thinking, we've got an ultimate ability. Yeah, that's where your ult comes in, right? So I will first of all just quickly say, I actually did say, we are cutting off all these angles. We don't have to actually fight anyone. We are going straight to main, sorry, straight to the anchor, which can open up the sites for your team, which is a very important role to kill when not on the site. The anchor is going to be the one that's going to be able to anchor the site, very popular thing. So what anchoring means is they're the one that's always going to be at the site. They're going to have the most defensive util set up at the site most of the time. Or they're just going to be sitting back site, making sure that when the enemy team comes in, they're going to be the ones taking the fights when they actually get into the site. And by killing that person, it makes it a lot easier to take the site, right? So for instance, if a Killjoy has a setup here, and you kill her on site because of your updraft dash, then your teammates don't have to worry about these mollies anymore. So a lot of her threat is gone. They don't have to worry about turret being sitting up here, shooting them. They don't have to worry about a lot of things, right? Which is really nice. So they can just get onto site. And they only have to worry about potential flooding, right? And then the retake. And then we'll talk about knives. So what knives can do. So a lot of people will think that going out with knives is like, probably is like a really good thing to just ignore all those two setups and just try and like do like updraft dashes outside and then take fights like that. But a lot of the time, it's actually just better to stick to those setups. So if you take this one, for example, I can get the door shut. That's not shut, that's closed, but I won't. Sorry, that's not shut, that's opened. But I can use this second smoke to actually disguise whether I'm actually going to like updraft out here, or I'm going to just like jump out of the smoke like this. Right, so there's plenty of options with the knives still. You can still use updraft as well from here and things like that. You've got plenty of options. And with this one, it's a bit better. So you can actually eliminate the downtime that you would have had by being in the air, by actually using it to your advantage with the knives and being a lot more harder to hit and not really taking any conventional angles, messing up the enemy's like crosshair placement, because you're not in a very good, you're not in like a very conventional position, being like in this part of the air, right? Very unconventional. They're usually going to have their crosshairs like this, or they're going to have their crosshairs like this if they are in like these type of positions. They might be having like this as well, depending if you have mid control. But there's plenty of like reasons to do these types of setups, and it's going to mess up with the enemy team. And that's like the main thing with entering. We're going to go over one more thing very briefly, which, as you can see, is the operator. We're going to go over what the operator is and what it brings to Jet. So I have gone over all the guns in my beginner's guide, one of my beginner's guide videos. So the operator is like a very immobile weapon. You don't really want to be peeking with it. You want to be holding angles with it. So Jet is pretty good at this, right? She's pretty good at using the operator because she has the dash, which allows her to kind of cheat some angles, where she can play in this sort of off angle, or like play like this deep line off angle, because a lot of the players in tiles are going to be looking at this angle like this. We can play out wide with our dash. As soon as we see someone, we can get a kill. We can get the kill. Don't do that. Don't dash forward. We can get the kill, and then we can dash back, right? So she's really good at cheating with the operator. She's like the main operator agent in the game, at least right now. She used to be Chamber for a bit, but Chamber is still also one of the main operator agents. So yeah, if you want to learn the operator, I recommend Jet or Chamber. Jet definitely brings more holistically to the game. So to learn the game, playing Jet is definitely the better option if you want to also learn the operator. yeah, that's it for Jet. I'll go on to the next one. So the next agent is Brimstone. So he's like the quintessential, most basic smoker. We're going to talk about all of his stuff, your controller. I'm going to talk about all of his abilities first. So his first ability and his most known ability and most important ability are smokes. And we'll talk about some of the stuff with smokes. Smokes can be quite intricate sometimes, but we're just going to go over the absolute basics of them in this video. And then we've got the Stim Beacon, which increases fire rate, and it also increases movement speed. Okay. So yeah, it's really, really strong for rotating or going into the sights. And then we've got a Molotov, which lasts a very long time. Very, very strong in post-plant situations, very, very strong for stuff like anti-flooding, which I explained in Jets. And then we've got his ult, and his ult is a very, very big orbital strike. This orbital strike does enough damage to kill everyone, to kill anyone, and that's in it for a long enough amount of time. Also really good on strong post-plants, also really good for taking space when you're attacking. So we'll talk about all those things with these abilities and what our kind of main duties are with Brimstone. The first thing I'm going to talk about with Brimstone is his smokes. So when you're placing smokes, I'm going to place 2 smokes differently, and we're going to see how they look, right? I'm going to place one smoke like this, I'm going to place one smoke like this. So we're gonna attack B, right? As you can see, this smoke is absolutely horrendous, right? And the reason why it's horrendous is because this smoke allows the enemy to sit into the smoke. They can take any angle they want out of the smoke, right? It's very similar to the way I was talking about jet smoke, is that we don't want to give them smokes like this because it gives them more of an advantage than it gives us, right? This smoke is not very good. You should never do it, right? Because this is an angle that we are going to have to fight, and we don't want to give them like enough, like some room to work with essentially in the smoke. And then if we go to this other smoke, this one also has a very similar problem. It just is less like it's like less in your face. What the problem is that this problem as well, that they can sit outside the actual choke point and they can flash to the side. They can also have multiple players in these like edges, so they can have 2 players at once pop out the smoke with a flash. And obviously with this smoke, it was a lot more than that. They could have, I don't know how many players could pop out the smoke with this. Probably like 3, maybe 4 players pop out a smoke with a flash there. So the way you actually want to smoke is this way. So as you can see, I'm putting the indicator is like, the edge of the indicator is kind of like on the doorway, right? And what this does is it allows these walls, or like these choke parts of the choke point, to be visible to me, right? Which means they have to be in this choke point to come out the smoke. And it means that they have no room to work with to like flash out and things like that, right? They can't come out anywhere other than within the choke point. There's no sneaky little like angles I can get by sneaking out the smoke and things like that, right? We are minimizing all the risk by smoking that way, right? So I've come to A main to quickly show you a one-way. So this is a one-way that you can use on A for ascent. And the general premise of a one-way is that you put the smoke on higher elevation so you can see the bottom half of someone coming through the choke point when they can't see you, basically, like at all. So in this situation, they can probably see like a tiny bit of me, but by the time they've seen a tiny bit of me, I'm already shooting by this point, right? So it means that I'm going to take an advantage fight whenever I use a one-way. That's kind of the main premise of a one-way. And you can apply it to as many places as you can see across all the maps. So the next one is the Stim Beacon, but it's hard to show this not in practice. I might be able to find some clip of me doing it. It will be over here, if it'll be on if I've got it. And essentially the point of the Stim Beacon on the fence a lot of the time is to use it to rotate fast, right? So then you can get to places fast to smoke them. However, the other side of that is to buff your team going into the site with higher attack speed, fire rate and movement speed. So yeah, that's like a very, very important part of using the stim. And this all like collaborates into the way that you'll play Brim. So now we're gonna combine this all together, right? And what Brim wants to do is, well, one of the biggest things we want to improve with this video is your confidence, right? And Brim is one of these agents that you actually do need a bit of confidence on, or a lot of confidence on. The reason being is because you're going to take a lot of fights that are just straight up raw. You don't have any utility with them. So let's say we're going to use our util to attack B. I've just used my smoke. Sorry, 2 smokes out of 3. I've used my stim. I've used my molly. And let's say we don't have ult this round, because most rounds you're not going to have ult. So I have 1 smoke left. Am I going to be necessarily a massive value to my team if I die before the post plant? And the answer is not massively, no. The one smoke would be nice, but there are maps and sites that you're going to be using all 3 smokes, and therefore you might not have any util left by the time you're actually entering. And that's like one of the important things with Brim, is that he's like really strong as like a second entry, even a primary entry if you happen to lose your Jet early in the round or Raze early in the round. Brim is the one that will go in first most of the time because he's got no more util left, right, most of the time. So in this situation, I would only have 1 smoke left, but it's probably more valuable to have like my server on my team have his arrow regenerate for the post plant, or maybe he's got more post plant util than me anyway, because I don't have ult and he does, or something like that, right? So I want to be going out instead of him, and that's what you kind of want on Brim. We want to build our confidence taking gunfights. Then we have my third agent, which is Cypher, and this is probably quite a big surprise to some people. I'm going to choose Cypher for a beginner player to learn. So the biggest part about Cypher that I chose him to learn is that he has to take timings, and he has to do that with their utility usually, and his abilities kind of allow him to get those timings more so than the other Sentinel agents that have that. Obviously there is Chamber as well, but I think Chamber is a bit more of a shortcut than I would like him to be for a player that needs to learn the game. So we're going to choose Cypher, and the reason why, so we're going to go through his abilities first. Which is Tripwire. So this Tripwire will make enemies glow red when they walk into it. It has a detection radius, so people will be able to see it we'll be able to see it from about this area, right? They'll be able to see this and hear this, so they can shoot it. It's destructible. The next one isn't destructible. It is the Cypher Cage, so enemies can't shoot this. You press F to detonate it. It's a big smoke, or a fairly decently sized smoke. And when enemies enter or exit this, it'll make a sound. Then we have the Spy Camera, which can go on basically every wall, as long as you've got the height. And what this does is it just allows you to see a bunch of places as long as you're operating it. And it also has a little tag. So when that tags, it'll do the same. It'll do like a yellow outline on them. It'll pulse a yellow outline on them every like second or 2 seconds. Every 2 seconds, I think, 1.5. And that's like really strong for finding information in general, right? And then we've got his ult. And his ult I can't show because you need a dead body. And what that does is it just reveals the enemy team in 2 snapshots. And those snapshots are about 2 or 3 seconds apart. So you have really good information on where the enemy is anywhere on the map. So it's very, very strong. And the main things that we want to be learning on Cypher is confidence. Because he doesn't have any way to take fights without utility. We also want to be learning like how a Sentinel / Anchor can operate. And we also want to learn some lurk timings and things like that. So I'm briefly going to go over trips. Generally, you want trips at about this height. It stops them from being crouched, and it stops them from being jumped over. There are certain situations where you have different height trips. For instance, this trip is something called a kill trip. So the kill trip is something that will get you a kill as long as you're active in this area. This is something that Cypher is quite Cypher specific in some ways, but in other ways not. So Killjoy has her traps to get her kills. But with Cypher, you want to be there to get your kills, or you want an ally to be there, or like a teammate to be there to get those kills. So the reason why this is a kill trip is because the first player is most likely going to dodge this trip with satchels or with a jump dash. So that means that the second player is going to hit this, not expect it because their teammate's already gone out, and then you can get a kill through smoke. Generally, there's going to be a smoke like this, so when the person gets triggered, I will see them in the red outline, and I'll get a free kill through a smoke. You can also do another kill trip like this, which will catch anyone dashing onto... well, not actually like that, actually. It's about here, I think. And the reason why you want it there is because it will most likely 100% get the dashing player. You won't leave it up to chance with their like short dashes and things like that. So with this is also another kill trip, so I can kill them once again through a smoke like this when they go to flick the switch, like I demonstrated on Jet. So what we want to talk about as well is like 2 modes of Cypher. More or less, there's like 2 sort of modes that are like very distinct on defense at least. And the first one is playing with these kill trips, kind of anchoring like very annoyingly, where you can get kills with your trips as they come into the site. It's very average anchor gameplay really to get kills with your util as the enemy enters the site. And there's also a second way to play him, which is more information focused, where you want to just get information on the site. Maybe I'll have what we'll do is we'll have a trip here, and we'll have a trip over here. Don't copy these setups, by the way. I think I do have a guide on Cypher on this map. I recommend going watching that instead of getting setups from me right now. But this is like a setup I have done before. So basically what this setup allows me to do is it allows me to play more retake like. So if my teammates want to play 4 towards A, maybe we'll have 2 tree and we'll have 2 main, then this allows me to control mid, because I'll be notified if this trip gets triggered or broken. I know if this trip over here gets triggered or broken, and I can also watch anyone walking out of B with my camera. It's important that I keep my camera open and not constantly close it and open it, as it makes the enemy team aware that my cam is here, and they may actually be able to know, especially due to my camera's positioning, they might actually be able to figure out that I'm playing retake, and I might hit the site very fast, which I can't stop, and we'll have to be in the retake instantly, right? And generally when you're playing 1 here and 4 here, you probably want to have them go into your bigger stack. So from these trips usage, we're kind of getting 2 different ways to play as an anchor, and that's what we kind of want as like our base level for like learning how to play as an anchor. So now main side B main, and we're going to talk about this anti-lurk or anti-flank trap. So what this trap does is it allows my teammates to safely go B, and unless there is certain circumstances where this trap either goes down, or they get or it gets like walled on top of, or jumped over, or something like that, right? With like raised satchels or Jet's updraft, then well, that won't make it safe necessarily 100% of the time. It is safety versus most agents. They either have to break it or they have to reposition and go all the way back to mid because my trap is there. And they don't want to notify the enemy team or my team that they're there. And this plays like an important part like of Cypher in general. You may remember that when we had a trap here and a trap here and a cam here on defense, we were sitting here, we didn't actually have to do that. We could have actually sat all the way next to our team, which means we could be ready for like a 5-man flood into the site if they decide to go A into our stack. Or, well, not really or, but we can actually play like with our trap here. We don't actually have to play with the traps, right? Even here, right, when I was sitting there, I wasn't playing with this mid trap, right? That's one of the biggest strengths of Cypher. And it means on attack, like we can just set and forget our trips. We can have them anti-flank for both sides. And what this means is that we can have maybe some heavy mid, or we know that if we don't go heavy mid and we decide to go through main, then we actually have main covered here. We also have map control here. So we actually know if someone pushes B main, despite having no one there if we don't want it, right? That's one of the main things with Cypher. It allows you to kind of cheat map control and to understand like, and I think this is like kind of like a building block where despite him cheating the actual like concept, right, of map control, because you don't have to delegate anyone to this position, we can still, now it allows us to like think about that concept, right? In map control, Cypher's traps allow you to improve your map control by placing them in different positions, or to understand like what lines do I need to control to help my team, right? And this is like big part of Cypher and a big part of other Sentinels. You need to understand where the enemy team want to push if they decide to push on defense. The next thing I'm going to go over are Cypher cages, and they just allow you to like cut off sight lines and to take some nice lurks. And also a little bit of pre-rain lineups and things like that. So this is a lineup for a one-way on lineup on Boathouse, which is pretty good. It stops the enemy team from like dashing here for free and smoking it. Bear in mind, you do have to make sure like you are make sure you're using it at the proper time to get the kill. Because sometimes Jets will like use both smokes to stop you from taking the fight instantly on them. And yeah, that's like basically all it is for cages, as I think I'm going to save the rest of like explanations and things because it is quite high level to a separate video of its own where I can talk about it in length. But essentially cages will help you lurk by cutting off sight lines of bots and turrets and things, and they can also help you with clutches in some ways when you've just finished a lurk, or when you've just like pulled the trigger on a lurk, to help you like win that round. And I'll talk about that in depth when I've got more of like more source material as well, when I have to go through it and find some source material to make this to make that explanation make sense. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the cam. And so the cam is very like temperamental sometimes, where sometimes you won't place in some places, but it will in some other places based on whether you jump or not. So it has like a height limit on it. And generally a good way to know the height limit is to just go where it's red. I actually don't have enough wall here. I do. Yeah. So go where it's red. Go straight where it's blue here, and then you can always place it at this line more or less. I think the window is messing with it a bit there, but you can basically always put it where it's blue originally. Yeah, there you go, like that. That's it. So that's like kind of like how to like shortcut place it. So if you do see it's red at some point, just go back, just go down until it's blue, and then you can jump place it at that line. Sometimes it's a bit finicky and will place in very weird positions, which is something that you'll need to learn. Also, I do want to make sure as well that we can actually use our camera as like a pseudo flash to peek angles. So enemies are going to be aware of this camera. They're going to shoot it because they don't want to be revealed. So what you can do is you can use the cam, not activate it, and use it to peek. There's also an option with the camera. Also, don't be afraid to take early information with the camera by doing this. And you'll get one of two things by doing a camera like this. Either it'll get shot instantly, giving you information of at least one player, maybe even two. If two people decide to shoot it, maybe they'll decide to speed up and you'll get more information because they're all speeding up and going into your sight now because they've been spotted. They were going to play contact, which contact means like they're walking and going slow until the enemy team sees them. But as going back on track, the other option that this camera has is that it sees no one and gives you a lot of information because you can see all of this, right? And there might be someone tucked behind there, or there might be someone in tiles. But now you have a lot of information on B main, right? There's no one B main, you know that now. And don't be afraid to do these aggressive cams because they're going to give you a lot of information. And this allows you to take lurks like this, right? So say if like there's no one there, I've got all that information. I'm not going to use that, like there's a chance I'm just going to use this information to now take a fight on this guy that I'm pretty sure could be there, right? And if he's not there, I'm going to keep myself like trained on that because it could be just doing a late lurk or like peek, sorry. And now I've got time to like, maybe I can like be very thorough and I can check the corner first. And then I can check it again with a deeper angle. And now I know that this part's probably going to be safe because I've just checked it with the camera. And now I can just peek these angles like this and then tiles. Probably peek that angle because I missed it by accident. So yeah, you get the kind of gist, right? This allows you to take space by doing these aggressive cams on defense. And the same goes for attack, right? If I am attacking B main and I just do a cam like this or something, and I see there's no one front sight, and maybe I see a turret here or something, what I could do is I could try and just like bounce a cage off, and then try and like walk my way into sight. And the best part about that is, right, the enemy team will clearly see this, right, or hear this, right? They might see it or hear it, right? And they'll be like, they might spray it, they might catch you, might not. And the best part is about this is that now they do not know if you're on site or not. You could have just placed these two cages and not actually use them. You could have just started walking back, going mid, right? And then the enemy team have to be like, well, maybe he's on B, maybe he's not. The anchor on B site is going to have to be like, well, I think he's still lane, I think he's still lane. When really you could just be running mid, going with your team to A or something like that, right? You can see like the ways that your camera can allow you to get enough information to then make these lurk plays that I was talking about. With the cages. So I spent too long recording that video that it's kicked me out, but essentially I'm going to go over one more thing, which is essentially very, very quickly, is confidence. You need to make sure that you are building your confidence as much as possible. You want to be able to take fights without util up until around gold, I would say. If you are using util religiously before gold, I would actually stop doing that and just play agents very, very basically. Don't use util that much and try and improve your aim as much as possible. Having good mechanics in gunfights is very, very important to improving at this game, because it also gives you confidence to take those fights that you need to take when you will need to take them, basically. So yeah, it's very, very important to have confidence, and that's where I'm going to end the video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next one.